Hey everybody, welcome back to Reissued. If you're new here, my name is Andrew. This week I am making some artwork as a part of my front porch makeover and maybe for some other things as well, I'm not sure. And I thought it would be interesting to take you along with me in my art making process and reveal all my deepest, darkest secrets of being a professional artist. Jumping right on in, secret number one, calling myself a professional artist feels a little bit like strange. If we're using that as a broader term, I guess that's appropriate. I am a dancer and a choreographer. I went to school for that. That is my primary career, I guess. But when it comes to the term artist in like a visual art sense, I do have a little bit of imposter syndrome surrounding that term. I don't really have any training in visual art post high school. Not that having professional training makes someone a great artist, but it does sort of like give you that like check mark seal of approval thing that says, I am this thing. Back in 2020, a lot of my career opportunities in dance kind of dried up. And so I sort of turned to making clothes again, drawing and painting again, things that I had done growing up, but that I just didn't really make the time for because you get very zeroed in on your career, right? And so once I was doing those things again, I was sharing them on Instagram and people started wanting to buy them. So I'm like, great, we're doing this. And so since then I sold a number of my pieces over Instagram, through my website, at some of the local markets here. And so I feel the term professional artist fits in the sense that I am making some portion of my income from sharing my art. However, it still feels a little bit weird. I don't really think of myself in that way.
Secret number two, blank canvases scare me. So if I'm working on smaller scale work, like a small sheet of paper, I can generally be okay with that. But when it comes to larger scale work, I much prefer to work on something that I've thrifted, whether that be like a cheap hotel looking canvas, a canvas that someone has already painted something on. Today I'm looking specifically for some framed canvases. I've done some work in the past where I've just like painted over the entire thing. I think that would be a good choice for the art that I'm wanting to make on my front porch. And so we're here at Goodwill, we're gonna take a look around, see what I can find.
When shopping for thrifted pieces to work on, I generally am looking for a few different things. First, I want the canvas or frame to feel fairly solid. This is both so that it'll have durability in case I need to ship it to a buyer, but also because I want something that feels high quality and luxe when hung. No additional framing required. Also, when it comes to painting over existing work, I'm not totally heartless, I promise. I know this is super subjective, but I try not to choose anything that I think someone else is really going to love. But I don't think the world will be any worse off with one less generic hotel art piece, Hobby Lobby print, or drink and draw painting. It just so happens that both pieces I use in this video were original paintings by relatively skilled hands. This time I was thinking I might incorporate some translucent pattern paper into my collage design, and these look perfect.
Alright, so Goodwill was a success. I found more or less exactly what I was looking for. I picked up that one really large canvas and one set of like children's patterns. I was really interested in the kind of like pattern paper look and layering that up. Both were 99 cents because it is 99 cent Saturday here and they were red tags, which is awesome. Which brings me to secret number three, fate is your friend. So one of the reasons that I think art making can be intimidating and that a blank canvas is intimidating to me is that it feels like it's all based on your own intuition, which, you know, that kind of is the point. That is what it means to be an artist. But at the same time, one of the reasons that I start from a place of thrifting for my art making practice and for my home renovation is that the fate factor comes into play, right? Something is handed to you from the universe. I happen to walk in today and find what I was looking for, and it sort of reassures me that maybe this is gonna work out. It's hard to know when to trust your intuition. Sometimes you have to really fight for something and it comes through, but other times sort of trusting the process and allowing things to come easily ultimately means that things end up right as they should be. So today things worked out and it gives me a sense of confidence that I'm on the right path and that this is going to be a good project. I'm going to stop at one more Goodwill on the way home and we'll see what else we can find there.
Price tag plays a big factor in my choices as well, as I generally try to keep my base price between $1 and $10. Unless the piece is super special. So even though there were some kind of interesting items here, nothing was special enough or in good enough condition to make me want to spend over $10. I walked around the store multiple times trying to make myself like something, besides this fabric bundle that I liked and absolutely did not need. Which brings us to secret number four. Lean into what speaks to you and don't force things to speak when they don't want to. I often find the materials and concepts that I start on the fence about end up in a pile of unfinished projects in my studio. Stick to the things that light your fire from the start. With that said, I left this Goodwill empty-handed.
So I just ran down to the REISSUED store, wasn't planning to go in there, but after the last Goodwill was a bust, I thought I would give it a go. I picked up this painting. It was 20 bucks, which is more than I wanted to spend, but the frame is super high quality and it's kind of the look and the size that I was going for. So Wouldn't probably spend that every day, but for this video, for today, we're gonna go for it. Plus, when my grand total at the first Goodwill was just over $2, I feel like it all evens out in the end, you know?
So I have my canvases, I'm getting ready to get started, which brings me to secret number 5. For me, getting started is the hardest part. I am the worst procrastinator. I think I get a little bit wrapped up in all the things that could go wrong, and it kind of moves into secret number 6, which every piece goes through a phase where I hate it. It's difficult to want to get started because I know there's going to be this part in the process where I feel really uncomfortable, where I hate looking at what I made and I'm just like cringing on the inside. I'm going to try to get over that and get started here and just power on with blind faith that this is going to work out. So now I'm going to get started with prepping my canvases. I'm probably going to just use some house paint that I already have lying around. That'll sort of incorporate the colors that I'm using in my house. I also find that even though I work a lot with acrylic paints, I think it's sometimes nice to work with house paints that are pre-mixed to get those kind of like murky in-between colors. Sometimes I feel like when I go straight from a tube of a really bright color, it can end up being overly saturated, which can work for some work, but for this particular stuff, I want it to feel a little bit more like interior design friendly. And so I'm not looking for like super loud color. So I'm gonna start with some latex paint and see how that goes. As I go, I'm gonna pay attention to the elements that I fully wanna cover up and be a little bit more opaque on those sections. But then there's also some elements of this where I kind of want the original work to show through. So I might water down the paint there and kind of allow things to be a little bit more transparent so that those elements can come through. I feel like blocking things out entirely would give me a little bit of that blank canvas effect, and you know that's scary for me. Plus, we are working with objects that have some history. They have a former artist that's associated with them, and so I feel like I want to kind of honor that and allow that to kind of bleed through a little bit. All right, so I'm gonna leave this to dry for a little bit and talk about secret number 7. It is okay to take inspiration. I think sometimes as artists, we think that every idea has to come from us and everything has to be your own pure creativity. But I think that it's totally okay to take inspiration and to sort of combine things that you see in order to fit your vision. So for these pieces, I'm doing sort of a collage style that was directly inspired by this piece. I found this at Goodwill about 10 years ago for $5. It is an original piece. There's a signature on the back. I cannot read the artist's name. I have looked it up and cannot find it anywhere. The combinations of the large graphic image with the words is something that I've used quite a lot. Not gonna be doing that this time, but that is something that I've taken from this piece. So the technique that I'm going to be using here that we're going to borrow is if we look up close here, you can see that there are actually seam lines where these are pages that have been cut out. So this just came off of a standard printer and it was combined into one large image. So we are going to use that technique for both of these. I have found some kind of vintage antique portraits that I'm wanting to blow up in large scale using a tool that I'm going to show you. And we're going to print those out and start with that as kind of our base layer to work on top of.
After taking some quick measurements of my pieces, I'm heading to rasterbaiter.net to blow up my images. I upload the desired image and play around with adding or taking away pages to get pretty close to my desired finished dimensions. Once I get things to the right size, I can export my image into a handy printable PDF. Same for my second image.
So this is gonna bring us into secret number 8. Not everything has to come from you. It's a little bit like secret number 7. I think one of the things that I got really hung up on when I started both in my visual art practice and also in my choreographic practice is I felt that I had to invent everything. So in that case, I would have to make up every movement myself, or if I'm drawing, I have to draw or paint everything myself. I can't start with anything. Over time with my choreography, I got more comfortable kind of collaborating with the dancers in the room and trusting that even if they have input in the process, it's still being filtered through my vision and therefore it's still my work. The goal is always that by the time this is over, I will have altered it and layered it and put my spin on it in a way that it does feel like mine. It's a fine line there, but I think with some practice and a skilled hand, it's definitely doable.
You may have noticed that I switched over from this image to this one. Even though I kind of prefer the aesthetic of the more close-up portrait, this one has more background, which will allow the existing painting to shine a bit more. Which brings us to secret number 9. Sometimes the best choice is the one that best highlights what you're working with. While the other portrait may be more aligned with my vision, It would be a waste to cover up all of the landscape painting, since that's a one-of-a-kind element on this specific canvas.
All right, everybody, I'm in my paint clothes. We're gonna get started in kind of putting everything together today, which brings me to secret number 10. You can't plan everything. So I've laid out my materials. I've sort of done as much as I can to put myself in a calm headspace, but ultimately we're just gonna get started and see how this goes. I'm gonna put some music on, I'm gonna put the camera on. So let me just talk you through some of the materials that I think I'm gonna be touching on here. I have some matte Mod Podge that I'm gonna use to apply my pages and also as a coating. Sometimes I like to mix that with my acrylic paints to have a kind of translucent layer. I have a couple colors in the basics, and then I have this set of the heavy body acrylics, so I have a variety of colors. I also have my pattern pieces here. These are the ones that I thrifted at Goodwill. I've been kind of laying them out and seeing how that might work. I also have a permanent marker here. Sometimes I like to do some kind of graffiti work on there. Yeah, so I think we're ready to go. Let's do it. All right, so I have to pause for a moment here and go buy some more Mod Podge because I ran out. As much as I try to be prepared, I never can quite be. However, I have two tips that have come to mind here. First, I almost always work in pairs on pieces, partly because I often will use the same colors and can kind of bounce around from one piece to the other, but also it just sort of gives me a little bit more confidence. Like in this case, the woman is like perfect. She did exactly what I thought it was gonna do. Everything was great. And then on the man, I'm having some real issues having the paper stick to the really heavy texture. And so he's a little bit of a disaster right now, but because the first one worked so well, I have faith and confidence that the second one will as well. So sometimes doing two at the same time can kind of keep the momentum rolling. Also coming to mind, let the materials speak to you. So on the man, one of the things that I thought was really interesting, I usually do these kind of collages with black and white images, but that one was printed in color. And as I was applying it, the colors did start to bleed and separate a little bit. So with the printer ink, that's bringing out a lot of magenta that I was not expecting, but that's kind of an interesting development. So we're gonna go with that and see what happens.
All right, off to Michael's with a friend.
Hi, friend. Are you ready to go to Michael's?
Okay, so I'm gonna leave these to dry for a bit. I think I'm gonna come back to these tomorrow or the next day. Just giving myself some distance from them. I wanna see them all dry and with fresh eyes so that I know how to finish them. It's one of those things where if I do too much, I can't really take it back. So I just wanna make sure that I'm seeing them with fresh eyes when I continue. Good morning, everybody. I love how these are looking. I'm gonna wash them in a couple different colors, throw on a few little details, and then we'll be good to go. I'm so excited.
Secret number 14. The hardest part is knowing when to stop. It's tough to know where to draw the line between unfinished and perfectly undone, richly layered and overworked. So I'm putting on some final touches and stepping away. My final secret is to use a sealant to finish off my work. Not only does this provide a painting with great durability and longevity, but it can bring out more intensity in the colors and even out the sheen across the piece to provide a finished look. It wasn't super necessary on these since they're coated with multiple layers of Mod Podge, but I'm still going to use it to create an even finish across the canvas and the frame. And I ran out of sealant, so we're going to make it work.
All right, everybody, these two pieces are done. The male portrait, which I'm calling Imprinted, is gonna live on my front porch as a part of my front porch makeover. I have a lot of work to do, but I'm working to reveal my front porch next week, so stay tuned for that. The female portrait I'm calling Torn Sky, because once I started working on the background, I couldn't get that song out of my head. I'm wide awake and I can see the perfect sky is torn. Yeah, so at the time this video goes live, she's gonna be available for purchase on my website. Be patient with me if you're looking at my website around the time that this video goes live. I just switched over to a new service, so I have barely any items on there, and there may be some glitches in the ordering process. I haven't tried that out yet, so just be patient with me there, but I promise we're gonna get that underway. But I wanted to go ahead and share my work with y'all in that way. Thank you so much for coming along with me with my artistic process as I revealed all of my secrets. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch. If you want to see more videos like this, hit the like button and the subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Are you gonna redeem yourself? Queenie, twirl, twirl, twirl.